Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you getting out here on short notice. My name is Jarrett Atkinson. I'm the Lubbock City Manager. We're not quite yet 72 hours after the snow began, but what we'd like to do right now is kind of run through a sequence, tell you how we got to the point of initiating our response, what we did as we went through that. Then once I'm finished, we're going to make available to you our experts, the folks who are actually out doing and making all these things happen. Preparing for this event actually started in January of 2017. Didn't know when the storm would hit, but we knew we had a chance then to really revise the response plans that we have for winter weather. We did that. We worked all the way through 17. We did not have a significant event. We continued to do exercises, and our most recent exercise was actually done, I believe, November the 3rd of this year. So really not much more than a month before the event actually hit. So what we saw from the city side response during this event is really the first test that we've had of these new plans. And you ask, what's in those plans? What's different? What have we just tweaked or improved on? What have we changed? And I'll go through a few of those for you. First, it's having very clearly defined response plans. We have snow routes. Those are actually available to anybody that would like to see them through our city website. So they're out there. What's in them? Certainly the main focus is the city arterials, and that begins with critical infrastructure, things like the hospitals. Are we sure that folks will be able to get in and out of those locations? It includes all school campuses, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get farther in. And it includes certain TxDOT roads that actually run through our city, roads like 4th and 19th. Another change that we've done is we've added additional response assets beyond what the street department is able to bring to bear. Primarily that's our Parks and Recreation team, their skilled operators that they have, and the additional heavy equipment that Parks and Recreation has that we can put to work for us. So with this additional equipment, what we saw over the course of this last weekend, all of the main pieces of heavy equipment available to the city, regardless of the department to which they're assigned, they're available, they're part of the plan, and we used them. So I'll give you an easy example of that. We have the school routes, as I mentioned earlier. These are in a route book, and they're numbered, and we know where we need to go to get a particular school open. Many of those schools that we pushed open starting yesterday were opened by the Parks Department with Parks Department equipment. What does that do? That allows the street department, their bigger, larger, heavier equipment, plus the heavy equipment we assign to them from parks, allows them to stay up on our main roads, on our arterial streets, allows them to work wrecks, hot spots, things like that. So we added a road grader that belongs to the Parks Department. It was out on the streets. That's all under the purview of Public Works. You'll get to visit with our Public Works director later. That's how we coordinate it. But we put it all to work all at the same time. Some other changes, we mobilize a little bit sooner. We think it's important to be ahead of one of these events. It's expensive to do that, no doubt, but you're not ever going to catch up if you let one of them get away from you. So we mobilize very soon. Public Works started staff rotations as early as Wednesday afternoon. They're getting equipment ready. They're sending people home when they need to so that we can bring them back in the middle of the night if that's what it is. If it's the 6 a.m. or the 12 o'clock, we're able to do that. Our Emergency Operations Center has been open since 6 a.m. on Friday, and it just wound down at 11 o'clock today. So all of the support staff, all the logistics, all the coordination has been in place since 6 a.m. Friday. When I talk about full support, what does that look like? Certainly we know the Lubbock Police Department, the Lubbock Fire and Rescue, Public Works, Parks and Recreation. So add to that a very large group, usually 23, 24 people in a shift, that are there just to help, just to coordinate, just to provide logistics. That includes emergency management, members of city management, Lubbock Power and Light, UMC's EMS service, information technology, our very own communications and marketing department. I'll talk more about them too later. Our fleet operation, our fleet garage has been open since midnight the day before this started. Our facilities department and our geographic information system. A lot of the maps that you saw communications put out are prepared in our EOC on the fly by the GIS department. So our primary response equipment has been out on the road since roughly midnight Friday. By 7 a.m. Saturday, during the heaviest part of the snow, that's when the supplemental equipment began to get mobilized. That's also when we made the switch from strictly salt and sand to beginning to plow. So you saw that added to it. Again, those 12 primary trucks have been run continuously since midnight Friday through this morning. Those trucks will be back at it tonight when we get the refreeze starting back on. Every road grader the city owns, most of the large wheel loaders that we own, those were all out on the streets. A lot of our smaller equipment, things like skid loaders and small tractors, those have been used at smaller facilities, parking lots, and things like that. You've likely noticed we did do something that appeared to be fundamentally different this time. We plowed the snow into the middle of the road. On its face, that doesn't look real logical, but I'll make some suggestions to tell you why we believe that's a more effective way to manage this. One, we don't block driveways. We don't block side streets. We don't make it more difficult for our emergency equipment to get into a neighborhood or for a neighborhood to get out and get on an arterial street. Doesn't impede right turns when you move into an intersection itself. It doesn't create ice dams on the gutter. If we push to the side over time, when that sinks and it hardens and it freezes, now we're pushing out into a lane of traffic with a puddle of water rather than merely a very thin film. It also lets us go back and scatter that snow. That started late Saturday. We did a lot of it yesterday. We still have a little more to go, but we can come back and at a higher speed just break that up, send it out across the road. Traffic grinds it up, it dries off, and we don't have a problem. A couple of probably lesser known facts from this event. We had 2 city chainsaw crews that came out. A couple of places, residential areas, very large trees came down and blocked an entire street. We used city crews to work on that, thus allowing LP&L to retain their contractors to help them if they get in any kind of an emergency or a serious situation there. Lubbock averages a little over 11 inches of snow a year. We received 10 inches in approximately 1/2 of one day. I'll tell you that I'm very, very proud of your city staff, and I mean that all across the city, left to right, up and down. They did a great job. They've implemented something new, and I think they've done so effectively. Doesn't mean we're perfect, we're not. We've already begun the discussion of what would we change, what would we adjust, what would we do different the next time. So I'm going to leave you with 3 points and then just a few little factoids. I think we can break this down into 3 things that helped us get through this. A plan. We had a plan. It was not made up as we went. Again, it's been in place since January of 17. It worked, it can be adjusted, and it'll keep getting better. Second, communications. I really want to congratulate all of our marketing, communications, and public information officers. I think they did a tremendous job keeping information out in front of the public. Third point, resources. Your city possesses a lot of resources. We possess a tremendous number of very skilled operators. We didn't leave anything on the table. We put that out to go to work, and again, we have the full support staff behind that to make it go. Just in your EOC alone, there have been 1,400 man-hours to this point committed in supporting the effort. And if we just want to pick one fact out, as we talk about public works, they've distributed over 610 tons of salt and sand across our street, and that number will go up by the end of today. So in conclusion, we'll continue to learn, and I'd be totally remiss not to thank the public for their efforts. We saw dramatically reduced vehicle accident loads from what was anticipated in the event. We had much less traffic on the streets than would be typical. Folks, by the public doing that, that allows us to get in and work on the snow, work on the ice much quicker, much safer, and we all end up being better for it. So with that, thank you. I will conclude, and then we're going to make these folks available individually to you if you have any questions. Thanks.